Foul-mouthed servers, humiliating birthday celebrations, and cold blasts of water in the face. If you like your meals served with a smile, you may want to think twice before dining out at these restaurants. It's not necessarily the food that brings in business to Dick's Last Resort, but the less than savory service. Here, diners are subjected to some of the most degrading remarks possible from their waitstaff. These insult-slinging servers are encouraged to be crude and disparaging. In other words, they aim to hurt feelings and have no problem playing into all manners of stereotypes and hasty judgments.
Better not annoy me.
The vile no-smile system service is certainly a contrast to what you typically experience at a restaurant, but it's proven to be an oddly successful approach. There are a dozen locations throughout the US that have sprung up since the chain began in 1985. While it can't quite compete with the popularity of, say, Chick-fil-A's oh-so-pleasant personality, there's clearly a niche market for the degradations Dick doles out. It's maybe not the best time to be named Karen, as the name has become synonymous with rude, entitled customers at fast food and other dining establishments. At Karen's Diner, though, the waitstaff is taking the moniker back and getting revenge on rude customers. It clearly isn't customers who call the shots here, and calling for a manager isn't going to get disgruntled diners very far. The Retro Diner calls itself an interactive restaurant, which basically means that patrons are a part of the experience and find themselves at the brunt of sassy remarks and embarrassing games. If you're the type of person who likes to be left alone to eat in peace, then Karen's Diner will likely be your own personal version of hell. Not only do servers embarrass you at your own table, but they carry around microphones to call you out to the whole diner. The restaurant's house games are another way to make patrons feel exposed. Servers call on diners to strut through the aisles like they're on the catwalk, or even get down on the floor on all fours. Of course, you can decline, but that will likely result in more aggressive callouts. You can currently find Karen's Diner locations in the UK, Ireland, and Indonesia. For those who like a bit of degradation with their burger, the flight may still be worth it. Chicagoans have their very own local retro diner that serves up smirks and a slew of rude remarks to patrons. Established in 1984 but styled to reflect the 1950s diner scene, Ed Debevic entertains patrons by embarrassing them with particularly pointed callouts. The diner comes with quite a few other interesting quirks too. At Ed Debevic's, a DJ-like announcer sits behind a tiled alcove to essentially narrate your dining experience. This employee's job is pretty much to cause as much of a ruckus as they can, and they have a microphone they use to now effectively and loudly poke fun at patrons. There's no employee uniform here, but workers do come dressed in an array of silly costumes. You have to keep your feet firmly planted on the ground to make it through such a degrading meal, but the staff doesn't. They often get up on the runway that runs down the center of the restaurant to line dance, sing, and even crawl. Shopsin's General Store, more commonly referred to by locals as Shopsin's, is located within a public market in New York City and has been favored by city dwellers and tourists since the early 70s. The restaurant is named after former owner Kenny Shopsin, who was known and loved for his temper as much as his eclectic take on food. Shopsin passed away back in 2018, but the restaurant has maintained an air of grumpiness in honor of the late chef. Servers and cooks have no issue being rude to customers or embarrassing them. Unlike some of the other establishments on this list, this reputation of rude treatment isn't as much a gimmick or theme as it is a natural, grandfathered-in sort of vibe. They're not slinging nonstop insults at Shopsin's, but they do have a no-nonsense attitude when it comes to their rules. As long as diners don't ask questions that are clearly posted on the menu or request something that goes against the rules, they will likely come out unscathed. With a name like Heart Attack Grill, you know a meal here can be potentially deadly, at least in the long term. This Las Vegas restaurant wants to feed you deep-fried food until you have a heart attack, or at least seriously pack on the pounds.
We are the bad boys of hamburgers.
Bigger is better here, and those who are over 350 pounds get to eat free. Yes, that means staff-weigh diners, with the digital numbers large enough for all around to track. This artery-clogging restaurant not only weighs customers, but also potentially spanks them if they don't finish their food. Thanks to a pretty wild food challenge that comes out to a whopping 20,000 calories, those last incidents happen relatively often. Drinks are served in IV bags, and you can even wear a medical gown if you want to stay true to the theme while also shielding your clothing from food spatters. You'll leave the Heart Attack Grill weighed, possibly spanked, and definitely with a full belly. While this kind of treatment would appeal to quite a lot of people, others may have a hard time getting over being struck in public. Don't worry too much though, the restaurant may not be afraid to embarrass customers, but diners aren't forced to step on the scale or participate in the spankings. There are hundreds of Texas Roadhouse locations across the United States serving up some pretty darn good steaks.
If it doesn't say Texas, it's not Texas Roadhouse.
If you've been to one, it likely wasn't an embarrassing experience. Unless, of course, it was your birthday. Typically, you're safe from humiliation here, but the steakhouse's birthday tradition brings about what many consider to be the end of civility and comfort. You can expect quite the ruckus once the celebration begins, and that you'll be right at the center of it, which can be especially mortifying for introverts. A birthday at Texas Roadhouse involves a line of chanting servers, which is comparable to many other restaurants. Where this steakhouse sets itself apart, though, is when staff sit the birthday boy or girl upon the birthday saddle with a cowboy hat atop their head. A staff member then yells to get the attention of everyone who is in the restaurant, making sure the birthday person is truly in the limelight. The rest of the patrons aren't completely off the hook either, because they're asked to respond to the announcement with a loud "Yee-haw!" Your reward for the mortification is a complimentary birthday dessert, so you'll have to decide if saving $8 is worth saddling up in front of a crowd. An alternative birthday celebration at Texas Roadhouse is line dancing, which servers bust out every Friday. Those celebrating a birthday are welcome to join in. For introverts, this may be a pick-your-poison type of situation. Birthdays are a special once-a-year occasion where some love to be the center of attention. Others, though, are horrified to find themselves in the spotlight, which makes celebrating at certain restaurants problematic. So, a warning, if you choose Joe's Crab Shack for your birthday venue, you could be subject to any number of crab-related mortifications. It's semi-normal for restaurant staff to get loud and sing for a patron's birthday, but Joe's Crab Shack takes it a few steps beyond that baseline embarrassment. Staff have been known to dress in wacky costumes while singing to the birthday celebrant, making as much noise as possible in the process. A Redditor recalled one celebration that involved a full crab costume in which the unsuspecting diner had to chant, "I am the king of crab," throughout the birthday song. A milder version employs a crab hat instead. As far as embarrassing birthday traditions go, Joe's Crab Shack has one of the most elaborate and potentially humiliating. There are currently only around 30 locations around the US, which is either lucky or unlucky depending on how you prefer to draw attention to your birthday. Outside of its intense birthday celebration, though, this seafood restaurant chain has a pretty chill vibe. If you've never been screamed at on a city sidewalk, then you probably have not spent long enough in the more interesting quarters of Chicago. The Windy City is known for its boisterous residents and stellar food scene. Probably the most iconic of the city's dishes is the Chicago-style hot dog. Where you can find the very best hot dog in Chicago is up for debate, but you can certainly find a hot dog experience loaded with personality at the Wieners Circle in Lincoln Park. The Wieners Circle is a small hot dog shop with a bar where staff pride themselves on their dogs and wiener jokes. Phallic humor that could make even a sailor blush can be heard from the dog slingers themselves, and the establishment's marquee is a canvas for zingers as well. There, the restaurant posts insults directed to passersby and pop culture icons alike. The spot is a popular late-night eatery where bar hoppers may come after they're already pretty far gone. Belligerent drunkenness is a surefire way to get the employees to hurl abuse your way, though, so venture here at your own risk. Common sense dictates that if you go to a stand-up comedy show, you should be able to take a joke. It's not in everyone's nature to stomach jokes made at their expense, though. Funny Bone is a comedy club chain where you pair dinner with a comedy show, and it's an intimate enough setting that comedians can easily poke fun at diners. Funny Bone books its comedians rather than employing in-house entertainment, so the club can't really take responsibility for any untoward jokes. The establishment likewise doesn't care if you get embarrassed or singled out by those comedians. You can't really control whether or not a comedian targets you to become a butt of their joke, but there are a few ways you can make your target a whole lot smaller. For instance, interrupting a comedian set is like holding up a sign that says, "Please roast me." Coming in late, leaving early, heckling, having your phone ringer on, and even standing up to go to the bathroom could all make you an easy mark. Most of these actions can be interpreted as pretty rude, but even just an impression you make on the comedian can open you up to criticism or comments. If you're not okay with becoming a part of a comedian's set, either grow a new funny bone or stay out of this establishment. Millennials, Gen Xers, and Leanne Rimes fans probably don't need this one laid out for them, as Coyote Ugly Saloon is very similar to the cult classic 2000 film that was made in its honor.
Coyote Ugly? Why would you name your bar that?
Because Cheers was taken.
For this reason, the restaurant staff members spend their nights dancing on top of the bar. These dancing servers and bartenders will pull up ladies to boogie as well. If you come to this bar, be prepared to lean into the rowdiness, as it's not a place for someone who blushes at attention. Like the movie that was made in its likeness, if you order water here, you'll get a face full of it. Traditionally, they don't serve plain H2O at Coyote Ugly, and the bartender will spray water when prompted by thirsty patrons. If you don't know it's coming and are genuinely thirsty, the surprise can be pretty humiliating. Yet for many, the slight degradation is part of the bar's charm. Coyote Ugly Saloon is now a chain of bars that first began in New York City. Today, there are over a dozen locations in the US and a handful of international bars bearing the Coyote Ugly name. Be sure you walk into any of these saloons with a tough skin, as you won't cut it inside otherwise.